One of the trickiest places that we tend to get caught in when trying to reach our goals is ideas. Now, ideas which may or may not be true, but one of those ideas that tends to hold many of us back is that we need to eat breakfast foods for breakfast, which of course isn't the case. And if we were to break things down, there's not really any such thing as a breakfast food. Now, you'll probably come back and go, well, what about breakfast cereals? They're literally marketed as breakfast foods. Well, yes, they are, but there's nothing that really stops you from having cereal in the afternoon or in the evening and so on. So, yes, it might be a breakfast food, but my point is really that we can eat any food at any time of the day. Now, just because I've brought up breakfast cereal, that's not me recommending breakfast cereal. I'm not saying don't eat it, but I'm not saying do eat it. At the end of the day, in reality, if you want good results and you want to maintain health, it's something you wouldn't eat frequently. So let's just leave it at that. Now, my actual main point really is a lot of people get stuck when it comes to breakfast. They're like, oh, I'm fine for lunch and I'm fine for my dinner, but I struggle to think of new or creative ideas for my breakfast. And again, it's because we're stuck in this idea that I can only eat certain foods for breakfast. They have to sort of come under the breakfast category, as in like bacon, sausages, eggs, maybe smoked salmon, things like that, toast, and so on, or cereals, as we've already mentioned. And they would maybe come under breakfast foods. But then anything else outside of that, oh, pork belly or steak or lamb and so on, like the things that we would traditionally have for dinner, they're like, well, no, they're dinner foods. I can't eat those at breakfast. Oh, I couldn't stomach that at breakfast. And the truth is 99% of people actually could if they just allowed themselves to do it. But the block is mental. It's not necessarily physiological. It's a mental block. It's this idea in our head that I can't eat that. That's not a breakfast food. So it needs to come within this small box that I've currently got myself situated in. Otherwise, it's not going to be applicable. But the truth is, if you wanted to have steak and mash for breakfast, you could. If you wanted to have a curry, if you wanted to have a Sunday roast on a Tuesday for breakfast, you could do it. It's just a case of whether you will or not. Now, it might seem weird to do that, but if you want to get consistent results, often we've got to lose some of these ideas that we have that are keeping us stuck. We're often stuck in these little boxes that we've built for ourselves that have so many rules and limitations that it makes it very difficult for us to continue to move forward and progress when it comes to reaching our goals. Now, the truth is, there is also a small part of us that kind of does it on purpose. Because if I put lots of rules and limitations in the way, it gives me a way out. Whenever things get too difficult, too hard, or I get annoyed or pissed off with this process, I can just throw my toys out the pram, let it all go because, well, it was too difficult anyway. There were too many rules, too many restrictions, too many things I had to do that were outside of my comfort zone and so on. So we're often, without realizing, give ourselves these sort of ways out. But unfortunately, that obviously stops us reaching the goal. Whereas if we were able to sit back with ourselves and go, oh, you know what? Maybe this idea, this belief, or this story or narrative that I have, maybe it's not serving me to reach my goal. Maybe actually I could have steak for breakfast. Maybe I could have a Sunday roast on a Tuesday, or whatever the thing might be. Now, if you want to have cereals, I'm not saying, as I mentioned earlier, to not have them. I would just recommend that it's not a daily thing for you. Because one, they tend to be very devoid of any real nutrition. For most people, they won't create any real level of satiety. So therefore, by the time your body has finished processing it, which isn't very long, you'll often end up with a blood sugar drop, which means you'll now probably crave something by the time your lunch or mid-morning comes around and so on. And for most people, it's not an ideal food to have to reach their body transformation goals. You know, if we're looking to burn body fat, if we're looking to build muscle, or even to repair because we've got certain injuries or aches and pains and niggles and things going on, cereal isn't the way forward for most people. So again, we would try where possible, like I always say, to stick with real foods, things like meat, fish, eggs, your dairy, your veg, fruits, herbs, spices, whole grains, if you can tolerate them, and so on. So you'd try to stick with real food and limit much of the processed stuff, regardless of whether you perceive it as a breakfast food or not. So really my point of the video, as I keep saying, is to get out of the idea that it has to be a particular type of food for a particular time of day. If you get used to just practicing, because that's what we need sometimes, there's no way I could have steak for breakfast or I could have a curry for breakfast. If you just practice small amounts of new things, then it doesn't take long, normally a few weeks, before you can actually get used to having foods that you wouldn't normally think of or even fancy or suspect you could or should have for breakfast, it gets much easier. It becomes a pretty easy and consistent way of life once you allow yourself to step outside of the box or the ideas that you have that are maybe keeping you restricted and unable to think of new or creative ways to enjoy breakfast. So nice, quick and easy one for us tonight, guys. If you want me to dig into this deeper, or if you want specific recipes, if you want specific meal plans or meal structures and things to work with, then of course I have lots of resources that I'm willing to share with you guys. Just drop a comment below. Let me know that you need some help, and I'll reach out to you and we can get you sorted with something there to help you start moving towards your goals. As always, people, any other questions, drop them in the comments below. And if not, and you want to learn more about what we do, check us out at strongerthanlife.com. And I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Take it easy, people.